So let's continue through the balance sheet. I know it's a lot, right? But the balance sheet now has the equity side. The equity side is the investors that have invested in our business. Usually, and in this case, we're going to be focused on stockholders. So you'll notice that there's some common stock at par value. Par value is an arbitrary amount that depends on the state. Some states require that you have it to ensure a minimum level of equity, basically to protect investors. However, par value is not really as necessary as it used to be because of changes to the system and other protections that they have in place. So not every state requires it, but some states still do. And if they have a par value, they usually make it very low because they don't want the market value, the amount that the stock is selling on the market to dip below that. Long story short, par value is usually a pretty small amount. However, the market doesn't care how much par value is. The market thinks the stock is worth more or less. That is how much people on the market are going to pay for the stock on the market. They're going to pay what they think it's worth, not what the par value. So just something to remember, par value is not the same to market value. The market value is what it's actually going for in the market, whereas par value is a stated amount that's kind of a legal amount. So if the market says we're going to pay more than the par value, which is usually the case, then we have to put that extra amount. Let's say the market says the stock's worth $15, the par value is $2. Where do we put that extra $13? Well, we put it in the additional paid-in capital. So if you look at the additional paid-in capital and the common stock at par and you add them up together, that's how much the investors paid for the stock when it was sold originally. And then we get to the retained earnings. So retained earnings is when we invest in ourselves, right? You know how a stock, the owners take the profit? Well, sometimes the owners, in a sense, put the money back into the business. And so when the corporation decides to keep the money, they retain it. And so if they're retaining their profit, they're retaining their earnings. So the name tells you what it is. Retained earnings is just keeping the profit and putting it back in. We'll use that to maybe invest in more equipment, open new locations, get some security, like some additional cash on hand. For whatever reason, we might want to retain some of those earnings. So a lot of times what happens is if a business has profit, so let's say they have profit like this business has $13,300. They might give some of it back. Maybe they give back $10,000 in dividends, and then they keep maybe $3,300, and that what they keep is the retained earnings. And so that's what retained earnings is all about. You can see the value of all the retained earnings they've ever kept on the balance sheet. Now we're going to finalize our discussion with these financial statements by looking at a different statement. It's called a statement of cash flows, which is interesting because you see we have cash on the balance sheet. So why would we need to know about more information about the cash? I mean, we don't have a statement of investment flows we don't have a statement of prepaid expenses or anything else, but we do have, just for cash, a statement of cash flows. Well, there's several reasons why we would need a statement of cash flow. I mean, first of all, cash is just so important. I mean, that's what we need to pay our employees. That's what we need to pay our debts. And when you look at the balance sheet and it shows you, how much cash you have at the end of the year, we don't know where that cash came from. We could have got that cash by taking out a loan or selling something. But what we really want to see is cash being generated by the company through their operations. And so the statement of cash flow will tell us that. It gives us the risk that the company is generating enough cash through its operations. That is really what it's all about. So when you look on the statement of cash flows, you see cash generated from operating activities. So you see cash from operating activities. You also see cash generated from investing activities or used in investing activities. And then financing. So think about it like that. So like this, financing activities is getting the money that you need for your business. So, for example, if we want to start a monster company selling truck parts, we're going to need a warehouse and we're going to need to buy some inventory. So where are we going to get the money? Where are we going to get the capital? That's where financing activities comes in. So financing activities is usually money in. And it's usually going to be from investors or loans. That's where it's going to come from. So it's usually cash in. Now, if you don't need any money, the company's been around for a while, they've saved some money up, they don't need money from a loan or investors, then you won't see cash coming in from financing activities. But let's say we got the money, so now we can use the money to start our business, Monster, and we buy a warehouse. So that's an investing activity. That's using the capital to buy what we need to run the business. This is usually cash out because we're using the cash up. So it's okay to see cash leaving through the investing activities. That's normal. That's what we want to see. We want to see our business, maybe reinvesting in more equipment, reinvesting in a new location, a new warehouse. That's okay. The operating activities is using the resources, using the warehouse, using the inventory, using all that stuff that we have. So use the resources in the day-to-day operation. And you want to see this as cash coming in from these operating activities. The operating activities are the key way that we want to see cash coming in, and that gives the management the ability to it gives us an idea of the management's ability to generate cash using the resources they have. So that's why we have a statement of cash flows. A statement of cash flows doesn't just show us how much cash we have, but it shows us where we got the cash, and that way we can see if our company's only has cash because they're kind of selling off their stuff to get cash. They're selling off their airplanes and they're selling off their warehouses and their land just so they have enough cash to run. That's not good. Or we can see if they're getting the cash from operations. That's a good thing. So we can get a real good idea of the risk that's going on with that company.